You
Wow.
actually hold on.
Is it? Do I lean in? I don't. We're professional.
Make it now. Record now. No dead air. No dead air.
My vector wasn't aligned. I'm sorry. I'll leave.
For the greatest capitalist in the history of the United States of America, Elon Musk.
The greatest capitalist.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is not a compliment. Like that. Maybe if we had built capitalism up to be like what people enshrine it to be, of like everyone's taken care of and you make all this money because you made these good decisions, it's all meritocracy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if it was all of that, yeah, sure. Like, hey, this person's great and really building the economy. How bad can it be? But
So
not now.
one of the things that makes him the greatest capitalist in the country, I believe this guy said,
Yeah.
which is a weird designation, but I'll give it to him, is he's a little dehumanizing in his rhetoric about his workers, rather. He's got this affect about his workers as if, they're vectors, in his word. They're vectors for getting the business from here to there. And if all of the vectors are pointing in one direction, we're good. But if one vector is pointing in a different direction, it's providing drag on the machine, and it's out. And it's very much an it. It's not a human.
That's such a mechanical way to look at humans too. Like,
but when you hear him talk, he like you get that from him.
Yeah,
you get that mechanicalness almost from him,
like Zuckerberg, but not as like might actually be an android vibes. So like this is one of those things. There's two things that stand out to me on that concept of like when you're talking about people like that and you have such a mechanical piece to it, that is not going to translate to a good workplace because like already it's dehumanizing, like you're saying. That's not going to equate to him giving a shit about you. But it also reveals this weird, like, he's viewing them as all pieces. And I guarantee you the key piece of the puzzle in his mind is him. He gives all the direction. All the vectors need to line up and follow it. And if everyone follows his ideas perfectly, everything will work. But if they don't, it's their fault for not being good enough and figuring out his idea, which he's just too smart and can't, convey well to these underlings. It creates like a narcissistic withdrawal where no matter what happens, you can withdraw and be like, no, I didn't cause X to go down. It would look at how undedicated these people were.
I would actually argue it's a narcissism feedback loop. He's getting a reward for being narcissistic by having people around him that align with. Now, I'll get to a point here in a minute, but by having a bunch of people around him that agree with him, for better or worse, for fear of losing their job, for actual believing in him, whatever the case. He's created such an echo chamber that he actually does not take to people telling him he's wrong. He doesn't take people saying no. He only, like, if you're a strong follower, you must push your leaders. You must push back against your leaders in a healthy way. You must work with them. You must collaborate with them. He doesn't want that. He wants you to fall in line and reanalyze everything you've done 14 times over because he doesn't like the angle of something. And my point that I was about to jump off on earlier was he may have a point in this because he is, after all, the richest man alive, presumably, potentially ever, at least in a listed format. I think there's some Saudi princes rumored to be trillionaires, but he may have a point where all vectors, all employees need to have, you know what? He does have a point.
I think so, but I think about taking
what he's talking about, and granted, it's extreme, but what he's talking about is extreme standardization, I think.
Yeah, it's that machinist mindset of if I can grease the wheels, if we can get as close to I expend 100%, I get 100% performance out of it, which in mechanical land is not really possible. Like cars lose a bunch of their actual energy production in the whole process to get you rolling. So I don't have perfectly gas efficient vehicles. But the hard part is I think they forget it's an organic piece. So it's more like tending a garden. Take care of your employees, make sure that they can do things well, they're well rested, they're able to come back, they have good ideas, all this stuff. And knowing that I have found that the most effective tool in leadership is understanding when your team has good ideas, you need to embrace it and go with them. It does not degrade who you are as a leader or a manager or a supervisor or whatever it is. In fact, you become so much more of a badass when you're like, that's a brilliant idea and you deserve credit for it. And like, let's see if we can get that rolling. Like, this is an amazing move. Good job. That'll get them aligned with you in a organic way where they are benefiting you. They are also learning and growing. They are bringing their ideas to the front that helps you learn and grow. But the hard part is Musk is not that type of person. I mean, the Twitter takeover was like a nightmare situation. Like him coming in and taking the sink out of the bathroom, like that's the kind of maturity I want to see from a boss. I'd be
He
out that
came
day.
in with a sink because he
He came in with
made
it?
everything plus the kitchen sink. Yeah, real tacky. Kind of funny,
Okay.
honestly. If
Oh,
I'm being like
God.
objective about it, but
If he had actually like run the company well, it would have been fucking hilarious. And that's where he thinks he's the Iron Man of all of this. But like instead, he ran the company into the fucking ground.
what you're talking about is a fundamentally different workplace growth philosophy than what Musk is capable of implementing, I think, or maybe he just doesn't see the value in it. So what you're talking about is growth and nurturing of humans. You're talking about
Yeah.
like getting someone in who may have an underdeveloped skill or a very developed skill even, which
Yeah.
they want to perfect,
Doesn't matter.
or they want to
Yeah.
develop this thing. And you want to be part of that. Like you want the business to be part of that because that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
You're helping your employees grow and become more competent in their skill. And you're helping your company grow in the meantime because look at this new employee who all of a sudden has these fun new tricks that they know how to do because you taught them. But also they brought their
Yeah.
own fun tricks in. So cool.
Yep.
Musk doesn't want any of that. I think he already wants full-fledged, fully matured professionals. He literally just wants to pull a cog out of the machine and put a new one in. He doesn't want to have to water a succulent in the meantime.
And I think that concept is a myth of the American workplace that comes from our old era of like, we didn't have computers, we didn't have AI, we didn't have things that would just allow you to kind of like, we're going to automate this stuff. Like accounting specialists, that is exactly what you're talking about. Somebody who has years of experience, they know the codes back and forth. You just say, hey, insert things, I get result, I pay you, you go do your thing. But when we're talking about like creative things where it's like inventing new things, testing them, stress testing them, thinking about how they can go wrong, how they can go right, part of that is knowing that all individuals will perpetually grow. And if they don't, they're spiritually dead and you should be concerned about them, like check on them. Some of these guys at the top perpetuate this mythology, I think, that empowers them, but it doesn't acknowledge that like good ideas come from your entire crew. Case in point, work with I'll just keep it broad. So I work with a group that sells salt. They produce it from the ground, like they do this really cool whole process and everything. I have meetings with them about once a month. Took them from small to smaller, bigger. When we started having these meetings, it was just me and the business owner, and that was good. He was very knowledgeable about a lot of pieces. And then we would have the guys who actually work the salt tables listening. And at one point, he is the business owner turned and went, hey, guys, you know what? Come here. I want you to just listen to this. Like, you don't have to say anything. You don't even have to understand what's going on, but just listen to what Colin's talking about. And feel free to ask questions, have ideas. And as a result, it created this really interesting atmosphere where these guys went from just production, and in one case, a sales guy, they went from just that to suddenly they're hearing a whole different piece. And then part of my role is like, we were trying to find a fun name for the blog, right? Blog's a lazy name, boring. And I was like, I don't know. What do we want to call it? We can newspaper theme it. We're all stumped. And one of the guys who is usually like just printing labels and putting them on bottles and stuff just goes, the Daily Pinch. And we were like, that is good. And like, I've got 9 years of marketing experience. It's my job to think up fun stuff like that. It just took the right moment, the right person that we wouldn't have predicted. I think that's how humans work. That's how we invent. That's how we grow. I love that as I do this, the camera zooms in on me.
It did, didn't, dude. I thought you would
Wow.
actually hold on.
Is it? Do I lean in? I don't. We're professionals.
Jesus Christ.
But
Who's
yeah,
watching? Did anyone just see that?
Yeah, right. But yeah, no, like that's kind of the thing. I think. Okay, I think what he's looking for is people who say yes, sir, because he wants to feed it. You call it out really well, and that like that narcissistic positive feedback loop. It might threaten him that other people have good ideas. In a successful organization, though, in a successful community, good ideas come from everyone. And so do bad ideas. You just have to weed them out. Those are the kind of leaders I respect, where someone's like, that's a really good idea. Let's roll with it. Like this guy doing Salt. Come on in. I want everyone to hear this. I want everyone to contribute. Like that was a power move. I would actually go so far as to be cringe and call him a baller for that.
Baller. Shock collar? I just got 20-inch blades on the Impaler.
Shaka Waka? Waka Shaka? Yeah.
We're
Very
good.
niche Netflix reference.
No, I think he wants his organizations to run more like a machine, in that he can just press go and they do the thing. Whereas you and I have very much an organism sort of mindset when it comes to business growth, where training, nurturing, accountability is the way, instead of just expecting everyone to be a professional day one, because we can't expect that. And especially in Musk's case, because he's hiring skilled, like very skilled people. He's like some of the best people in the world are working for him. SpaceX, Tesla, got some of the best engineers in auto manufacturing. And then you have like Neuralink, who's doing things, and you got the Boring Company, who is probably not doing anything at this point, but at one point was trying to figure out how to bore under LA, because he wanted to create some fucking goofy ass like tunnel.
The mega highway, yeah.
Well, it was, I don't remember if that's what he called it. I'm sure it was, but
like that,
it sounds like something he would call it. But it was one of those, like, you just drove up to it and it had like a weird roller coaster chain, and it just like you put your car on a platform and you just went through it. I was just like, fuck, dude. Like, okay.
How much did the government pay for that? Because boy, that money could have helped some LA infrastructure. But anyway, that's another topic.
There's a lot of topics in the sentence you just said.
I'm an enabler.
I ran through about 6 of them just then, just dripping with it. But yeah, I think maybe he doesn't know how to nurture, because he's a pretty cold person. And you and I have both talked about it briefly, at least. You're probably more aware of these stories than I am, but people sleeping under their desks and shit. And he just comes in and goes, sleeping, you're fired.
Well, yeah, essentially. That's the interesting part in this. So let me see if I can find a couple of my notes on that here. So the general trend I found when researching Tesla, because I was around in California when Tesla started the takeoff, zooming in again. But the interesting part was, early on, it was like, dude, if you got a job at Tesla, you made it. People bragged about the benefits, the hours, the cool stuff you got to do on shift, how much you were getting paid. It was part of the tech boom. The hard part is, like, those, just so everyone's on a level playing field here, the era of the really cool tech firms is kind of dead and gone. Like, after a certain point, all of the people that are coming around and scalping like restaurants like Applebee's and stripping of their assets, corporate raiders, those people got to tech firms too. And now it's like, hey, yeah, sure, you're handling $1.2 million per month in client accounts. Congratulations, we really trust you. So $17 an hour is the best we can do, but I have a relaxation pod inside of the dining room. There's only one, though, so you have to share it with the other 572 employees.
Do we get to use it together?
No, one person at a time, unfortunately. We really believe in dividing people.
What about Shannon? Like, she's pretty small. She could probably fit in there too.
No, Shannon's actually quite the bitch. We're getting rid of her tomorrow because she was encouraging people to work together. Not on my watch.
No, we can't have that. What's that called? Collaboration?
Collab something.
Collabical? No. There's words for that somewhere.
Yeah.
Not in English.
But yeah, no, it's interesting on a lot of these notes of just how bad these guys get, how everything just seems like it's a min-maxing game. What I see now is like Tesla went down the same path. There are people talking about it like, yeah, it used to be cool, but now we're working 12-hour days on average. The salaries have been cut. They have dropped. The benefits, the bonus structure specifically, used to be something that people would brag about. I don't know the specifics. Few people revealed them, but like, my understanding was like, your benefits, your bonus was almost as much as your yearly salary, if not 2 to 3 times that in certain circumstances and positions. Those are all gone. So all of these perks and benefits have gone away as Musk seems to be getting a little more unstable and tyrannical in his rule. Twitter wiping out most of the functional staff, ignoring the specialists, saying, it's fine, I can do this. other people having to go in and fix his errors because he's not a coding genius. That's
No.
okay. He doesn't have to be. He has to be a good leader, and he's not.
He does have a singular focus on his legacy, and so does Trump, and we'll get to him in a second. But Musk's focus on his legacy is much different than Trump's is, because I think we'll get to why in a minute. But I think Trump's focus on his legacy is at least a little more empathetic than Musk, because Musk is, as we've just talked about, like, he literally just plugs and plays professionals until his corporations run smoothly, and the second it isn't, he's plugging and playing again. He doesn't care. He literally doesn't care. And now that he's one step closer, like, he's in the ideal position for somebody like him. He doesn't want to be in political office. He basically has said as much. What he wants is to have political influence. And now he does. And now he fucking is the owner of space, which is like, I'm just like realizing new things about his position every day. I'm just thinking about what he's into, who he's going to be connected with, who he is connected with, and what that means for the rest of us. You were talking about his love for corporate towns, because he's building a massive, I think, like 6,000 acre suburb outside of Austin, strictly for Tesla workers, at the Gigafactory, and
like SpaceX, and Gigafactory.
Space Dragon, I think, is the
Hyperloop
personnel thing, the space personnel thing. It seems that everything is working out for him, and it seems to be largely at the expense of the employees and failed promises. He's been saying we're 3 or 4 years away from a self-driving car for like a decade, maybe 2 decades.
He has a pattern. Every time you ask him in interviews, it's 4 years. I would say it's about 4 years away. And I guarantee you his employees are like,
no fucking way.
Who said that?
Well, it's one of the things, that was one of the biggest complaints I kept coming across when looking at what it was like to work for Elon Musk, was unreasonable deadlines. Impossible was the term I kept encountering, was impossible deadlines, which makes me ask, what kind of person would work for Musk?
I mean, I knew some people in some of the agencies I worked in. They were like Musk lapdogs. They thought he was the most genius person in the world. That's why he's so powerful. All I have to do is be as smart as him, and I'll make lots of money. It's like, actually, I think you have to be as ruthless as him. I think that's actually a secret. Because, like, your case in point, what we just covered, impossible deadlines. In 4 years, we're going to have this. You know, he walks back in and is like, all right, you got 4 years. And people are like, there is no freaking way he did not run this by us. Yep. And then he turns around and goes, my vectors weren't aligned. I had a bunch of people resisting me. We couldn't achieve that 4-year goal because you guys fucked this up. I know it's possible.
If you listen to him talk to, I guarantee what you just said is a sentence that he has said in its exact entirety. Just like, well, my you see, my vectors weren't aligned, and sometimes Tesla stock just tends to just goes down.
Yeah.
Like, bro,
or it's part of the plan, you know, even though the vectors were unaligned, you know, this is, stick with it for a while. We're going to be fine. You know, you don't like me so much, just stop advertising with me. That was funny as fuck.
The thing is, he's got enough money to float it himself, and he knows it. And it literally doesn't matter. You can't financially punish the guy. He's got $300 billion. He'll be the first American trillionaire in less than a decade.
I forget which Nordic country it was, but they have a percentage of your income approach to ticketing people and charging them for like small crimes and stuff. So instead of being like, it's a flat $75, you're speeding, how dare you, Charles? It would be, sorry, man, it's 7% of your income. How much do you make a year? And in some cases, like, as you increase your mistakes, it gets bigger. I don't know how I just slid to the side. I am discovering
what is happening. Am I tripping?
No, I am like on magic or something. But as it grew, it would increase. Can you imagine someone like Trump or Musk getting pulled over for speeding, and that officer being like, that's a 12% of your income tax? Give. I mean, hey, we'd have a lot of money to spend in the government for a bit, but like, that would actually financially punish him. But to your point, there is no financial punishment for him. He can do whatever he wants right now. He's proven that several times over.
And it's only going to get more and more prevalent, because he's in a non-government agency tasked with the duty of advising the destruction of government agencies.
We literally put the axe in charge of forestry.
So Trump I feel like that was a pretty good point to like just leave Elon hanging on.
That was perfect.
I feel like we kind of covered that rather concisely. We're getting better. We're getting better at not getting super tangenty. You know,
As
for
we
all
go on
you
a
who are
tangent
listening.
about not going on a tangent.
So yeah, here's a rant about how anti-rant I am these days and how concise I can be. You know what that
What
really
rant
is?
are you
What we just did. Here's a rant about how concise I can be. That's like two people running the Department of Government Efficiency. Which at this point is it's a trope, it's a joke that's been made 1,000 times over. I just thought of a cleverer way to glove it up.
Yeah. Oh, we gotta cover the transition perfectly too. Of the latest job openings for the roles in these departments are asking for 80-hour weeks with no pay.
Is that real? You mentioned that earlier, and I thought you were just blowing smoke up my skirt.
No, nope, I am not blowing smoke up your USB ports, my friend. Those job posts are out there.
I want to see that. We'll look that up at some point. We can look it up right now. What the fuck are we thinking?
Yeah, give me a second here.
No one's putting a gun to our head. Make it now. Record now. No dead air. No dead air.
In a new X post on Thursday that doubled his job announcement, source The Guardian, and another one of Musk's trolling attempts, he claimed. We need super high IQ small government revolutionaries willing to work out of 80 plus hours per week on unglamorous cost cutting.
I just remembered what I was going to say earlier about this company housing and how it tied into the space. I got sidetracked and I let myself get sidetracked earlier. And I just didn't stop myself. I just let myself finish my thought.
Fair.
Musk owning now, basically, part of space via SpaceX. SpaceX will for sure become a government contractor if it isn't already. I believe I mentioned that in the last episode. Neither here nor there. Last episode up here, folks. He's colonizing Mars. He's going to put a Tesla town on Mars. I had this thought today on the way into work. The dude is just trying to be Magellan. He wants to own Mars. He wants to actually rule a world. He doesn't care if it's Earth. He just wants a planet to rule all his own. You know that he can't rule Earth.
Yeah. He could do some crazy shit here, but he's never going to be the ruler of a planet.
Yeah,
his ego says that. He thinks he's hot shit.
Well, he's got an ego. Apparently, he was bullied a lot when he was a kid, and I think he lets that ego get in the way of strong followers and having strong followers. I think he enjoys lapdogs a little more because they're not so bully-ish to him. Like I think he almost sees strong followers as bullies to a degree, which tells me that there ain't going to be anyone willing to tell him no living on Mars because that dude is just going to tell them to walk outside. And what are they going to do? Say no?
Just casually walking. So it's time for your employee review, Charles. You know, I understand you were discussing a little disgruntled. Can you step into this airlock for a moment?
Dude, I like tell me I'm wrong. I don't know, like prove to me I'm wrong. I haven't seen anything in behavior that would convince me that he's capable of killing. But I mean, if he's on Mars, if I'm on Mars, like my earthly values, I'm a pretty value-driven person at this point in my life. If I'm on Mars, I probably don't have the same values anymore because that shit don't work on Mars.
Yeah, you have a whole different subsystem, whole different culture to develop. I heard a really interesting note on like childhood trauma, and like one of the narcissistic theories is that if you sustain this heavy damage to your ego as a child, you're emotionally abused. Like I believe, if I recall the stories correctly, his father was not a good person. This quote kind of opened my eyes on it, but the narcissistic theory is you end up stuck at that age emotionally and you can't get past it. Like that's what binds you to being that. And then this quote really woke me up, which was saying you become the person that you needed most in your time of need that would have helped you survive. He kind of has become that. He's made his own little insulated world and done these horrible things, but he could justify it. He became the person that would have protected child like him from the stuff that you and I are discussing. It can go both ways. It could be a positive thing. Like for me, it was I had a compassionate individual who led that. So I try to mirror that compassion and learn from it. So Trump.
Yeah, Trump. I do have a different closing thought now, though.
Oh, yeah.
When we get
to
let's see if I remember to pick up on that thought later. That's why I take notes, people. Trump, I think he's also very singularly focused on his legacy, but I think he's very different in his approach than Musk is. I think Musk is very calculated, very cold, very machinist. Trump, from what I've gathered, welcomes criticism. He welcomes the differing of
Interesting.
opinions at the
Interesting.
table. He's going to go off and do whatever. Every single interview I watched basically said this. He's going to go off and make the decision that he's going to make. He's going to do and say whatever he's going to do and say. But
Yeah.
while at the table, he welcomes the discourse. He wants it even.
I
But
wonder too, because he
he
seems
also
to
has
enjoy it.
never once admitted or said, I was wrong. He
Yeah.
might say something like, that was that could have turned out better or something. It's always diminishing the failures.
Yeah.
I think
Deflecting
it's a little bit
it.
of like it's a little bit of a delirium thing at that point, right? Like it's not necessarily an ego because he's made some successes on his own too, but a little bit like I think it takes a level of delirium to achieve anything worth achieving.
I mean, yeah, there is
Some
a
people are
little bit
just-
of crazy that has to go with it, but it's got to be
Yeah.
the good kind of crazy, not this shit. There's this interesting theory. Did you watch The Walking Dead?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how early on it's the shitty non-human people that seem to be doing so well. Like the apocalypse happens, it's the shitty gang leaders and stuff that are
Mhm.
taking over and they're hoarding their resources and setting them up as despots. There's a really interesting study that went down. I wish I could find who did it. I think actually MatPat even covers a concept of it on game theory, where they talk about early on the extremists do well because they're selfish in an ecosystem. So they grab their resources for themselves, and early on that works. As long as there are enough resources to sustain that behavior, they expand their resource hoard rapidly. They look attractive and wealthy and taken care of and all stuff. It doesn't matter what's really going on behind the scenes. But eventually that ecosystem has a certain threshold. Once you hit that, what happens afterwards? Well, now you start to hurt the others around you. The increased competition starts to pull from you more. That's kind of what our capitalist system is doing right now. Kind of where Trump's business empire is right now. Like you're kind of like the machinist for Musk totally makes sense to me. Like especially with that narcissistic ego and everything. For Trump, though, he feels like one of those, at least to me, like we arranged that business to fail for tax cuts. And it's just like the really sleazy gangster that shouldn't exist anymore.
Well, it's the Queen's businessman.
Valid. Yeah.
By definition, he is a Queen's businessman.
Yeah.
Born and raised in Queens, like he's a very driven and competitive person. Like Musk, he says that he doesn't require hardly any sleep. Musk is famous for working 16 I'm going to put allegedly around these statements. Because I understand physiology at a base level, and I also understand how I function without sleep, and I can get by on 5-6 hours of sleep pretty fucking easy. Anything less than that, like these guys are allegedly getting, balls no. I understand there are people out there who can pull it off, but I just don't think the likelihood of them finding each other in the world, being billionaires and also being some of the most powerful men in the world, arguably the two most powerful men in the world at this point, that are at least public facing. Musk apparently is famous for working 16-hour days, 7 days a week for years on end, and Trump is essentially famous for it. In fact, there's a story about Trump going to a press conference, I think it was a press conference recently, and he'd been out for 3 straight days, allegedly, again.
Allegedly, yeah.
Now we just want these people running the world? I mean, if you're president of the United States, you're president of the world.
Yeah, we're the de facto superpower. We're the Fire Nation.
Yeah, literally. Especially when he's in charge, you're fired.
I walked into it. My vector wasn't aligned. I'm sorry. I'll leave. I can't even do that right now.
But I do think overall, I do think Trump has a bit more of an empathetic approach to decision making as a leader, because he actually cares about the opinions of others toward him. He just does the thing that gets the biggest reaction around him.
Yeah, he likes attention. He likes that fuel.
And so like I think I think they're both probably pretty easily manipulated, honestly. I think Musk is just ambitious, and ambitious people are just sort of really easy to manipulate generally, because they want so much, and anyone who wants something can have a carrot dangled in front of them.
Yeah. It's like in a fight, if you can get somebody to focus on something, you can draw them into it and mess with them. Like
exactly
that dedication is there.
And with Trump, Trump's famous for not paying his people. He's famous for not paying entire crews and unions and shit on construction companies and all this.
There was one case where it's 475,000 Yeah, $475,000 claim with 300 Los Angeles Golf Club employees over unpaid wages and age discrimination. The dude's just known for
Right.
not doing this well.
Speaking of discrimination, he's also known for being a bit of a sexist. I guess back when, and I'm pulling at this point from Barbara Ress's account of working with him for like 20 years under the Trump organization.
Yeah.
So she worked with him through the 80s and the 90s when he was younger and not politically necessarily involved. And she was saying that whenever like a secretary would come around, an admin person or something like that would come around, and there were other men around, as soon as she would leave, he would look over at them and go, "So what do you think of that one?" Like it's clearly a status symbol for him to have attractive women around.
Yeah.
Um,
An age old.
it's yes, age old fucking stereotype. It's almost laughable how it's I don't know, like I can't think of a specific reference off the top of my head, but it's just very like in the zeitgeist of a trope from a sitcom.
Yep.
Like, oh, look at the rack on that one. Like, Jesus Christ, fucking Mad Men style.
Yeah. And it's weird because you'd think we were beyond this. Like when I was younger, I thought we were beyond all this stuff. Like I thought golden era kind of stuff. And now I look around like, oh my God, we're still relearning 100-year-old lessons, 200-year-old lessons, 300-year-old lessons.
Yeah. The more things change, the more they stay the same. The names and the faces change, the behavior don't. It's exactly why we started doing the historical stuff. It's because we talked about current events and what can and should be done about them, at least in our worldview and our perspective. But then we also talk about the historical stuff because it's always related. Always. Yeah. We just talked about the Battle of which hill was that?
Yeah, Blair Mountain.
Blair Mountain. So we just talked about the Battle of Blair Mountain and the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. Both instances resulted in a lot of worker deaths and zero CEO or C-suite at all accountability. Just like, I say just like Musk again hadn't killed anyone. Don't know if he's got it in him, but
you know what?
He's got the money and the hookups now. But he just runs his guys into the ground, and you know he runs himself into the ground too. That's one of the things I think maybe. When you're looking to work for someone like Musk or Trump, you're looking to get firsthand, like shoulder to shoulder accessibility to an industry leader, maybe even a genius. I mean, it's no doubt in my mind, Elon Musk is a genius. Someone would argue that Trump is a genius. I don't think he's as stupid as I did 4 years ago. I don't think he's a genius, though.
I think he's clever.
I think he's clever. Yes. Yeah. I think he knows how to get people to work with him. Because he's got all this reputation and people are still clamoring to work with like notable people. Elon fucking Musk. Donald Trump has this big old, like this massive reputation for not paying his people, for being sexist, and for being just like a total kind of douche, honestly. Not really an outright dick. I didn't get that sense from any of the interviews that I watched, any of the articles that I read that he was an outright dick as a boss, but a bit of a douche for sure. One douchey example. One douchey example of Trump's behavior is the Trump Tower. Goes up to floor 58. There's 58 floors in Trump Tower. Trump's penthouse is the top 3 floors. In order to get to the first floor, you have to press 66, which implies there are 68 floors to the building.
Damn.
That's it. That's where the compensation is coming. Like that's how small and nitty gritty it can be with him. And he'll never admit when he's wrong. He'll exploit weaknesses in others. Like he blames others for wrongdoings and for his fuck ups too. We've seen that in the news cycle, right?
God, yeah. Well, and even then, before the news cycle, we saw it in like the 2000s fascination with him when he was showing up on game shows and stuff. Like people knew he's an asshole then too.
Yeah, well, then it was fun for him to be an asshole. He's oh, I'm fucking blah blah blah. You're fired. Like,
we could be like, fuck, I never want to work for that guy.
I think working at this point, working for Trump and working for Trump like prior, I think working for Trump in the 90s would have been a lot like working for Musk now, except for you get paid when you work for Musk, at least in something.
Yeah,
I think
even if it's not benefits, paychecks are stable.
they're there. Yeah, you got to
Yeah.
work your dick into the dirt to get it, but they're there. But I think working for Trump isn't necessarily working for Trump anymore as much as it is working for the U.S. government. Because there's like you can work for Marjorie Taylor Greene and work for Trump. You know what I mean? Like there's so many factions that are just loyal to him. You don't have to have elbow to elbow experience with him to work for him and to further his agenda. I think you might actually have to work for Musk to further. I mean, you do. Like you have to fucking be there on the factory floor to make the Tesla. So yes,
Or
you have to be there.
You have to provide value to them, something that would make them think that you're valuable to their plans. And then just keep in mind that you're a cog in the machinist's machine. The moment you don't do something useful, you're gone.
Well, how would you go about protecting yourself if you had a boss like that?
God, immediately start looking for other work. Because, like, case in point,
Well, let's say you wanted to work for Neuralink. You wanted to be one of the doctors putting that shit in Noah, what's his name's brain. Or you wanted to be part of the team that put the rocket Snatcher together, or part of the team that put the new Tesla Cybertruck together. Like it's a dream of yours. You're going to do it. It doesn't matter what. First of all, go to therapy. Second of all, what would you do once you're there and you realize like the job isn't? Maybe you do actually get along with Musk in the work environment mostly. But we've seen diehard followers of both of these people just get thrown under, especially with Trump. That motherfucker loves to throw his loyals under the bus.
My God. Yeah, it's crazy. Which makes me feel like when you're there, you got to know that you're always on edge, which I'm sure he likes because he can play that to get more out of you.
Part of his charisma is his ability to make an enemy out of anyone. Once you have an ability, you have a cult. Or I'm sorry, once you have an enemy, you have a cult. So we need an enemy so we can make a cult.
Yep.
But
shitty CEOs. Got it.
People, I think we might need to be a little bit more specific than that. But we'll pick a CEO a week to be mad at.
Okay, fair enough.
You're it today. Take that.
Fuck you, Musk.
I hope you hear this all the way up there.
Your fucking golden tower on Mars, you piece of shit. Anyway,
I can see your tank from here. Fuck, where was that? Protecting yourself from these guys.
Yeah, like protecting it. God, I honestly think the only solid plan is getting out because, like, I think reality would be I've had really cool hotels where I was like, it is the most beautiful property in the world. I want to work there. Like, then you get there and you experience the reality of it, and you're like, okay, maybe I didn't actually work here. Shit.
Yeah, the rose-colored glasses really start to fade away pretty quick.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
When reality is revealed to you, especially, and when you're working for people who don't really care about anything about themselves at the end of the day. I mentioned earlier that Trump, I think, has a bit more of an empathetic approach to leading, but his execution sucks. His execution still ends up with the blame of others, the loss of their jobs. We literally just mentioned it. Like, he's notorious for throwing people who were loyal to him under the bus.
Yep.
And that obviously would go for his employees as well. There's no way it wouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, again,
ultimately,
you can't tell me Musk wouldn't replace all of his workers right now if AI and machines could do it. He would do it so fucking.
That's the fucking crazy thing, is those motherfuckers working for him are building their replacements.
Yeah.
Jesus. On that note, stick around. We got another topic coming up about where are the tech workers going.
Oh yeah.
But this is the end of this segment. So, sincerely, thank you for watching, and we will catch you on the flip side. Stay safe out there, people.